2, 3, listen.
To come full circle and go back to the topic of technology, I feel like I think we all are people who have been working in this industry for a while. Do you feel like sometimes there's a danger of not doing things because you have too much technology, like you mentioned before, actually, like because you're like possibilities are so endless that some people really feel overwhelmed with what you can do, so you end up doing nothing, or you're doing it with the wrong mindset and the wrong tools, which frustrates you even more.
Yeah, exactly, because especially what you said before, additionally you have all those trends. So there was a decade where anybody was using a slider, even if it doesn't tell something, but any shot had to be a slider. And now it's
I'm glad we don't use sliders here.
And now it's the same with the drones. So we have no drone yet. But it's the same with the drones, like people forcing themselves to put a drone into their production, but what it tells, I mean, does it help your story to tell something? And I think with the equipment, what I see a lot with other friends of mine, or even with myself, is like spending a lot of money for technology. And sometimes I ask myself, so wait a second, I want to tell stories. Why I don't take the money I spend for the next update for a better camera, just to go to the country I want to shoot something and shoot it with the older camera. And it's easily to get like in a trap where you're always updating your. It's like with the mobile phone. We all always want to have the newest version of the mobile phone, and the same. It's getting started with the camera equipment, that we always like trying to get the newest and the best. And that's why it's good, like, to have a limitation to say, okay, this is my camera, it does what I need. Maybe it does not anything, but I need to find to what you said, like to work with what my camera can do. Maybe don't need 500 frames per second. Maybe I just have to learn to make a good movie with 50 frames per second. So it's possible.
Yeah, that's the things like technology easily makes us completely like forget about what we can actually do with the basic things. And I really like what Noah said about like embracing the limitations, because that is one of the things that really made me skilled. And in the future, because of the democratization of technology, your brains and your skills are the ones that people will hire, because anyone will have access to the same equipment. We're talking about a matter of years, not a matter of decades. So it's if you're not able to somehow train yourself, train your eye, train your ability to understand, train your ability to understand the person in front of your camera, all these things, then you will be obsolete at some point.
A good friend could be a hardware shop, for example. If oh, I want to do this shot, and how can we do it? And you don't have this technique maybe to do it. I love to go to a hardware shop and just buy a piece of wood and just tape a camera on it and just on a pole, whatever, and then you have your drone shot, whatever, because you don't have it, but you want to have this picture. So, it pushes your creativity, and this is so much more fun. That's why I love right now to work with less tools, just one camera, audio recorder, whatever, just to minimize like to your needs, and then just go out there and do. And if there's maybe a little gap where you have to jump over, just think about how to jump over to not fall into the water and have a great picture, kind of. And that's the fun part of filmmaking.
I also think that more equipment and bigger equipment slows you down.
Absolutely.
And that's a big issue, especially as we try to work with smaller crews because of different reasons. The more stuff you have on a set or in your car or ready to go, probably not ready to go, will actually mean that you are filming less on any given shooting day, because it takes more time to put everything together. It takes more time to go from the A camera to the B camera to the C camera, or to the drone, and prepare everything. And if you only had this one small camera, you could do everything with it. You might not do, you might not be able to do it the exact same way you would be able to do it with all the other stuff, but you are producing more, which in the end sometimes or often means that you have more output, which means more creative possibilities.
Yeah, after your standard pictures you produce, kind of which are enough to make a nice video, whatever. With the small equipment, still you have the time to say, oh, let's try out that one and that one and that one, and sometimes maybe you end up with shots you never would have done because you wouldn't have the time, and then it's like, oh well, this makes it to a completely different movie just because you have the time and the right tool to do it. Just not wasting time with preparation of a lot of equipment.
The perfect equipment has the danger of influencing the way of work to a point where it's more conventional in that sense. Not that it's bad to be conventional, but it pushes for less experimentation, because if you have no limitations, then it's you really need to work on a very, very large scale to be able to set the big equipment free, to have the large cameras float, to have no weight on it. You need a massive crew that is trained and machined, and we see it on very beautiful big movies, especially the more creative ones. But having the limitation frees you. It also offers you things that you would have never obtained unless you had the limitation. When you have to invent something that will give you the idea that you wanted, it pushes you to bring it from an angle you could not predict. You get a gift, because you're not repeating something that you've seen. You're pushed into a place where the movie told you what it needs to be. And that's the gift of that type of freedom, that type of technology.
That's a very interesting thought, I think, because especially young filmmakers all strive to use the best gear and everything. But actually, if you don't have the crew to support all that, and if you don't have the budget to support all that, it actually just makes you slow and more conventional. Because you have all these opportunities, you don't use them. You cannot use them because you don't have the personnel or time to do that.
Even the post-production.
Yeah.
Lots of people forget about the post-production.
Big
Cameras and everything, 4K, RAW, blah, whatever, and then it's like, oh yeah, I need more storage, faster computer and all this, and kind of,
it's a chain.
Yeah. It all starts with the camera, and then everything,
And it's funny, sometimes when the people came and tell me like, oh, I wish they would have this camera, I would shoot this and that and that, I always show them, next time this guy have to sit here, because he made a revolution in my eyes. Its name is Candy, a director from Paris, and since years he's shooting on this really old, small DSLR, and he making kick-ass movies. Only with this camera, and most of the time he only using one lens, and nobody recognized people asking, oh, do you use this and this cinema camera? And I just use this one. And he said, this is my limit, and I doing movies with this, I telling stories with this, and he's pushing content all the time. And this is like, this guy is a good example to show like, need simple things.
That's good stuff.
You know him?
Yeah. Yeah, he's one of those like, holy shit, really? Shut on that. But one of the things that also, like, if you have too much choice, you often go in without a plan. That I personally, like, I just hate working with people that go and it's like, okay, so what do I choose next? And let's put on this lens, try. Okay, it's good to try things, but also if you have time constraints, if you really want to be lean and mean, and especially with a lot of the productions we do, one of my favorite DOP is Chase Irwin, if you know him. Like, I love that. Oftentimes on his things, he will like, I'll shoot this one lens. We decide that very, very early on, and we will only use these compositions only. And things like House of Cards, the way that Fincher Limited, that you're not going to do Steadicam, you're not going to do handheld. It just you define the limits, and then you work the story into them, and it becomes something that it builds a language. And if you don't have those limits, if you don't have those goalposts of, the way that you're going to be telling the story, it will be fractured and it will look like different things, and it will not feel logical to a lot of the viewers.
Even if you like improvising, the restrictions are very important. That the improvisation is in a restricted zone, because you will get a lot more out of it, and it's closer to your idea.
Yeah, because a child can improvise on a piano. They will go and hit the keys, and it will sound like a horrible mess that. You just don't want to hear that. But then, you know, jazz is improvisation, like good improvisational jazz. It sounds beautiful because you've set certain goalposts that you work within. And I think that's really important in cinema.
And also that's a good example because I think you need to know the rules to break them.
Yes.
And these are musicians who know all the musical rules and break them.
Exactly.
And it's the same with filmmaking, I think. As long, when you start improvising and have no plan, it's terrible. If you have a plan, and it actually gives you the chance to improvise, because having a plan means knowing how long something will take, and you can deviate from that plan because you know what you are doing. Yeah.
Yeah, one really good thing I learned at film school was there was like one day they forced us to do a documentary on film 16mm, and you only get 2 weeks time and 10 rolls. And I really, because I grew up with DSLRs, like like now, and I was like, why? I don't want to use that. And some people say, I'm crazy, you can shoot on film. But I didn't care because I wanted to tell the story, and I felt like limited. But then I have really to, it's so frustrating in an interview, like all 10 minutes we have to change the role. And I didn't saw the sense, and I was really fighting with the school to find a way to come around it. But of course I lost the fight, so I had to accept it, and I tried to find a way to make it. And after it I realized, like, I'm really happy to live where I live now, that we can just take a camera and press the record button and put it on a small card like this, and don't pay like 200 euro for 10 minutes.
And don't lose it.
And don't lose it. It's really, you appreciate the technology then. And this also shows, like, sometimes we grow up with this technology and we don't even appreciate it, what it does here.
On the other hand, this limitation of having this time limit with film is something that a lot of people strive. I mean, like, you know, like especially film school people sometimes intentionally put themselves through because they know they have the limitation, so they really need to plan and think closely how they are going to use these.
Yeah, you're really thinking what questions you will ask him when the protagonist is talking like another way. You catch him back and say, no, this is the question. And I don't remember who said this, but there was coming one day somebody in the film school, somebody famous, but I forgot the name, and it was online, it was Werner Herzog, he said this, and he said, like, sometimes his students come to him and say, like, oh, I shot like 300 hours documentary footage, and he said this is nothing to be proud of it, because it's not the amount of hours you shot or how many cameras. It's really like to concentrate and putting the time and the money into the pre-production, thinking about what you want to tell, how you want to tell it. This is much more, it's worth so much, and
I think
take small equipment to do it.
And the technology is, you know, like, because of all the availability, as we mentioned, the tendency to overshoot is there, which only complicates the post-production process. And I don't know, there's hundreds or thousands of film academy, film school projects that were never finished because of that very reason, I think. And not only film school projects, but particularly film school projects.
Commercial productions.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks for watching this segment of our roundtable discussion with filmmakers here in Copenhagen, Denmark. In our final segment, we're going to discuss the future of filmmaking technology and the future of all the filmmakers sitting here at this table. Thanks for watching.